Hi everyone, I'm Michael Short. This is Let's Go Outdoors.
Let's go outdoors where the waters run clear and cold. Mother Nature's world is better than gold. So much to see, so much to do. Let's go outdoors, me and you.
Let's Go Outdoors with Michael Short. Supported by the Alberta Conservation Association.
Hi everyone, welcome to Let's Go Outdoors. I'm Michael Short.
And I'm Elma Mehmedbegovic.
Coming up, is Alberta home to a new subspecies of bird? We'll follow the call of the yellow-bellied sapsucker to find out.
Trying to determine the abundance of fish in a section of a stream is a relatively easy thing to do when you have the right equipment.
And we will mount up and tag along with some Alberta Park conservation officers as they head out on patrol. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Let's Go Outdoors. We get things underway, Alma, with a trip to Waterton National Park to look into a rather serious issue affecting bats.
You bet, Michael. White nose syndrome is a disease that is threatening North America's bat population. And as our Mary Hulbert found out, biologists with the Waterton National Park are burning the midnight hours checking up on the health of these little guys.
So what we look at are things on land.
While this might look like a great location to find a trout, it turns out areas like this are also great to locate bats. You just have to be here at the right time of day.
But the bats are only out at night, and that's one of the reasons we know so little about them. It's just, we just don't think about them because they're never seen, really.
Right, because we're not so nocturnal.
We're not so nocturnal, and that's one of the challenges for a bat researcher. Night people are much better bat researchers than day people.
So if there's any people who like to stay up at night, send your resume into Parks Canada, and you too can research bats all night long.
So it's just a recording device, and you can see a wire going up.
Barb Johnston is a biologist with Waterton National Park, tells us there's still a lot of research that needs to be done in the park to get a handle on the different type of species of bat that call this area home.
And I can go back to the office and see what species we picked up on here. Waterton's been here for a very long time. It's an old park, and we know a lot about the wildlife in the park, and surprisingly, we weren't even confident with the species list we had for bats. So for a long time, we've been thinking in the back of our minds, really, we should get a better inventory of what bat species are here.
Even though the white nose syndrome is not present in the Waterton bat population yet, when it does come, scientists will at least have a baseline in terms of the various species and a rough population estimate. And there lies the tricky part. Just how does one go about cataloging bats?
So there's two things we're doing to try and survey the bats. One, as I mentioned, was the acoustic monitoring. So we're recording their clicking sound. It's above our range of hearing, so we don't hear it, but as they're navigating, they use ultrasound, kind of like a sonar. And the sounds that they emit are characteristic by species, so by recording the sound and then playing it through your computer so you can see it rather than hear it, you can tell what species it is.
The other method involves using a mist net. This is a very delicate net that a bat harmlessly flies into. Biologists can then go on to perform a number of tests to confirm species and take DNA samples. And after all the poking and prodding, it's time to send this little guy back into the cover of darkness.
Our friends here at Waterton have just begun to scratch the surface with bat research, but hopefully they'll be able to do it for a long time to come, as bats have a life expectancy of up to 30-some years.
Here in Alberta, the Catamount Caves near Hinton have been closed to all public access because of this fatal ailment.
Here's hoping a cure to this disease can be found soon.
Well, we're going to keep the winged theme going, Elma.
That's right. I understand you were on a quest along the eastern foothills looking for a sapsucker?
Well, it's the yellow-bellied sapsucker to be specific. Let's check it out. We're along the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains where a kind of genetic warfare is taking place, which may eventually lead to the birth of a new bird species.
For over 15 years, Dr. Jocelyn Hudon, along with others, have been wandering the foothills of the eastern slopes, trying to track down what scientists feel is a new subspecies of sapsucker. As it turns out, this section of Alberta is unique in the country, as it represents the only area where both the western red-naped and the eastern yellow-belly sapsucker meet. Now, Dr. Hudon believes this meeting area is ground zero for a new subspecies.
The two meet here, and what's happening is that they look different, but they don't seem to care about the differences, and they interbreed and they mix. And so what we're getting here are birds that show intermediate characteristics or combination of the characteristics of the two form in individual birds and of what we call hybrids.
There is a bit of an art to tracking down these winged forest dwellers. The first step is looking for the right kind of tree.
And those trees are parasitized by a fungus which hollows the inside, so they're trees that they can depend on. Once they get through the outer hard exterior of the tree, they can go inside and it's quite soft and quite easy to create a nest.
But as it turns out, sapsuckers are not the only birds that call these kinds of trees home, as this nuthatch demonstrates. So some of the key giveaways to the location of a sapsucker is the cry of the hungry baby sapsuckers. They will demand food from the two parents all day long.
So the birds don't necessarily come back and reuse the same nest, or?
They do if they can, actually, because they're already familiar with the area.
Once the nest has been located, it provides us with an opportunity to see if this female is one of the hybrid models.
We wanted to standardize the way we recorded the characteristics of the birds. And so we developed these field data sheets. And what those sheets allowed me to, they show me the various conditions that you could observe on a sapsucker related for each of the characteristics that distinguishes the two forms. For one example is one of them has no red on the back of the head whatsoever, whereas the other one has quite a bit. So we look at the bird, both the male and the female, and we look at the amount of red on the nape, on the back of the head. And then we can just score here. We just determine that is it from nothing to quite a bit, or intermediate, or in different configurations, so on. So we record this, and that way we have a standardized way.
While it's great to have the field guide along, there's another element that's required: a great deal of patience, as Jocelyn won't leave the nest site until he can make a positive ID.
So even if we couldn't really determine what the mustache was, based on the amount of white on the back and the fact that we don't see any red on the nape, we can kind of...
Wouldn't that be nice? Actually,
what? That's not it, eh?
But that's not...
I oversimplify everything.
No, it's not a oversimplifying, but I need to know. You're right. Both based on the amount of red on the nape and the amount of white on the back, it looks like a fairly pure yellow-bellied. But I need to, for all of the birds, all of the nests that I find, I need to look at all those characteristics.
That's why he's the scientist.
Yeah.
On this day, we were unsuccessful in locating a hybrid, but given this unique location, future sightings should become more frequent.
It's a hybrid hotspot. Not only do the sapsuckers do this, there's some 15 species of birds where we have an eastern form, a race you might call, usually we refer to them as subspecies, that runs into a western form that differs in a number of ways. For these 15 species of birds of so, they're meeting here and they hybridize, and there's just nowhere else in the country where that happens.
So did you actually see a yellow-bellied sapsucker?
Well, I thought I did, but Jocelyn's not convinced.
Well, coming up, we're gonna go spend the day at the beach.
The Alberta Conservation Association is proud to be partnered with Alberta Fish and Game Association, Alberta Hunter Education Instructors Association, Alberta Professional Outfitters Society.
Time now for a look at our outdoor community calendar.
Mixing an electrical current with water while you're standing in it doesn't sound like a very good idea. But as you're about to find out, using this method of fishing is really helping researchers in the Crow's Nest area.
It's a beautiful day to go fishing, and that's what Alberta Conservation Association biologist Brad Herkett and his assistant Jason Blackburn are about to do. You'll notice their choice of fishing rod is somewhat different. That's a backpack Electrofisher. Recreational fishermen aren't allowed to use them, but for biologists who want to measure fish populations, they're an effective tool and are safe to use provided you are properly trained and equipped. Both are wearing insulated gloves and overalls that protect them from the electric current. The Electrofisher itself has some built-in safety features.
A mercury switch that shuts the machine off if we go beyond about a 35-degree angle in case we fall in.
This is Lynx Creek, a small mountain stream located southwest of Pincher Creek.
Power's on.
First, Brad and Jason calibrate the unit so that it sends out the right electric field for this size of creek. It's typically a two-man operation. Jason holds a pole with the circular metal rod at the end called the anode. It sends out an electrical current that stuns the fish and draws it closer. Brad is standing by to scoop them up in his dip net. Doesn't take long to see how well it works.
Another one.
It's a quick way to catch fish in what could otherwise be a challenging environment.
Especially a mountain stream like this, lots of nooks and crannies, and fish are pretty much everywhere in their habitat.
Electrofishing causes no permanent harm to the fish. They return to their natural state in just a couple of minutes. However, there is some risk to fish eggs, so the Electrofisher is not used during spawning season. Part of a bigger 5-year study, this sampling project aims to measure all sizes of fish in the Castle River drainage.
If we were, for example, using angling as another sampling technique, we would only be targeting certain size fish, the bigger fish. Electrofishing enables us to basically sample all fish of all size classes, from young of the year all the way up to adult fish.
Let's see what's in the bucket after 20 minutes of fishing.
They all have that nice distinct slash under the jaw, which is indicative of a cutthroat trout.
Robert Boyce is an environmental specialist with Devon, Canada. His company has provided some of the funding for this study.
Back to where they came from.
Devon has been really good supporting us, and they have used our data quite well, and they've enhanced a lot of their stream crossing.
As for fish populations in Lynx Creek, Brad's happy with today's catch.
It was nice to see because we had fish of all size classes, from small, young of the year to, mature size fish up to 12 inches. So it looks pretty healthy.
So Elma, would you rather be approached by a conservation officer in a vehicle, on ATV, or on a horse?
Oh, a horse for sure. He could be my knight in shining armor.
I don't know about the armor, perhaps a shining belt buckle, though.
It'll do.
Well, conservation officers use horses to reach remote areas in provincial parks. You could also find them in large cities as well.
Conservation Officer Arthur Hughes is mounting up on his horse Rooster to do patrols. Along with him is another CEO, Peter Giambardino, on his horse Nip. Alberta Parks often uses horses in remote areas, but today's patrol is taking place in Calgary at Fish Creek Provincial Park. In no time at all, Nip and Rooster are getting a lot of attention.
Why do you have horses here?
Why do we have horses here? Because we're able to patrol some of the areas that we can't patrol by foot and we can't patrol in our vehicles. So that's why we have them.
So this is Nip and that's Rooster.
Rooster? Yeah, just stick your hand out, let them smell your hand. They're quite friendly.
That's so cool!
Fish Creek Provincial Park is one of the largest urban parks in North America, even bigger than Vancouver's Stanley Park. Stretching 19 kilometers from east to west, there's a lot of ground to cover. Horses can get you almost anywhere, and they leave a softer footprint and make a lot less noise than any ATV.
So you can cross water with having minimal environmental impact. It's also good public relations. You know, the public sees you out there, and it's a good way to interact with them.
Conservation Officer Nathan Brown is getting his horse ready for a ride in Sheep River Provincial Park southwest of Turner Valley. Before riding an Alberta Parks horse, staff first must take an equestrian course. Many in this group are just completing that 4-day course today. While hunting is not permitted in Sheep River Provincial Park, it is allowed in the adjacent Blue Rock Wildland Provincial Park. So Nathan and other COs here often pack their saddlebags for an overnight trip and head out on patrol.
In an interaction with the public on motorized transportation, you're likely to get kind of a negative response, but I would say probably every interaction you'd have on horseback is going to be a positive experience. Most of the hunters and users in that area are equestrian users as well.
Currently, Alberta Parks has 23 horses on duty throughout the province, and they've been used for patrols and trail maintenance since the late 1970s. These photos are from the Wilmore Wilderness Park north of Hinton.
Parks is about protecting land bases, but I also think it's about, you know, part of our heritage and history and protecting that. And horses are a part of the Western way and the Western history.
Back at Sheep River, we've returned to where we started. Off come the saddles, and it's time to return the horses to their corral. Nothing like a roll in the dirt to cool off after a long ride.
Rooster's about 8 years old, and I think Nip's about 16.
Meanwhile, back in Calgary, Rooster and Nip continue to soak up all the attention. There'll be no rolling on the ground for these boys today. After all, this is the big city.
Coming up, Brad Fenson will have some thoughts about wearing the right life jacket.
And really, having them in the boat isn't going to help you. You do have to wear them.
The Alberta Conservation Association is proud to be partnered with Alberta Trappers Association, Nature Alberta, Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta,
Time now for a look at our outdoor community calendar.
The boreal forest is home to the woodland caribou, which can be found from Newfoundland to BC. Despite its vast range, this animal is listed as endangered.
In Alberta, some interesting work is taking place to determine the caribou population numbers and the impact the oil and gas industry is having on the habitat of this reclusive animal.
For several years now, Statoil, based in the Conklin area just south of Fort McMurray, has been funding research work into the impact their operation may be having on the woodland caribou.
Footprint causes a physical disturbance on the landscape, causes an impact. What the significance or the magnitude of that is, I don't know. There's lots of information that's been out, previous studies. The results that we've got agrees with some of it. It doesn't necessarily agree with some of the other findings. So I think it will form the basis of a good, solid scientific discussion and debate. Will there be an impact of development? There's always an impact. Whether it's significant, I don't know. We know that over the past 20, 30 years that the caribou populations have been declining.
But it's on that point where things get interesting. While there is general agreement caribou numbers are going down, there has never been a statistically proven population estimate for woodland caribou until now. The Statoil research indicates caribou numbers are actually higher than previously estimated, at least in their study area.
We've learned a couple of things. First, we've learned that the caribou population in the portion that we've studied is more than twice than what we had anticipated. And that's really a good news story. We've learned that in the wintertime, deer are the main food for wolves. They eat about 80% of wolf's diet is deer, about 10% is caribou, about 10% is moose.
Even though the population is higher than anticipated, caribou is still a listed species, and the lichen program is one of several approaches Statoil is developing to help mitigate impact on them.
So we've started a study on lichen propagation. Lichen is a very slow-growing species, and we've had an extensive fire in the southern part of our study area, the House River fire. We know from a lichen survey work that's been done, there's not a lot of lichen here. So what we'd like to be able to do is reintroduce lichen. So the question is, where do you introduce it? What are the optimum growing conditions? How do you expedite or speed up that recovery of lichen in the population?
Now, how all this information has been gathered is the subject of our next trip out here, when I'll introduce you to some rather remarkable dogs which can sniff out caribou scat through several feet of snow.
Boy, I'm glad I didn't have that dog's job.
Yeah, they can sniff out a story a long ways away. We'll have more on that next week. You know, without a doubt, life jackets save lives. Brad Fenson has some tips on how to choose the one that's best for you.
Hi, I'm Brad Fenson with the Alberta Fish and Game Association with your outdoor tip of the week. You know, water sports are very popular in Alberta, angling, water skiing, all the rest of it. I can't stress how important it is to have proper life jackets. 87% of drownings occur because people did not wear a life jacket. That's a staggering number. So there's some really key things to know about life jackets, but super easy to remember. You want to pick one that has a zipper that won't rust, clasps that are durable, that do up tight, and really having them in the boat isn't going to help you. You do have to wear them, and making sure that they're set up properly is super easy. There's instructions on all of them, but you want it to fit snug so it doesn't move. And the reason is, if you're actually going to be saved by someone, they're going to grab this jacket and pull you into a boat. If you don't have this waist strap done up, the life jacket's going to pull up over your head. So it's really important to wear them properly and securely. Now there's lots of different models out there, and of course if we're out fishing or something, we can take the ones with the vest that you can inflate or blow up if you run into trouble. So lots of different things to look at. Again, fitting them is crucial, and there's information inside of every life jacket that'll tell you that it is certified by the Canadian Coast Guard, which is also important, but it'll also tell you what size of people or what weights these jackets are good for. And some of them actually have an expiry date, so you want to check that, and if your life jacket isn't good, it's time to replace it. So if you're heading out on the water this year, please enjoy your water sports, take a life jacket, and wear them properly.
Coming up, we go to Slave Lake to learn about a new program called Kids Can Catch.
No?
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay.
Now put your other one underneath like this.
The Alberta Conservation Association is proud to be partnered with Pheasants Forever, Alberta Council, Treaty 8 First Nations of Alberta, Trout Unlimited Canada.
Time now for a look at our outdoor community calendar.
You know, I can certainly remember my first time fishing, even though it was just to the end of a dock. It is a memory that has stayed with me over the years. Now, I was fortunate that I had an uncle willing to take me out for my first trip, but some kids don't have an adult to introduce them to this activity. This is the value of having a program like Kids Can Catch.
It may seem a little strange for these grade 7 and 8 students to get their heads wrapped around the fact that they would be spending a day fishing with mentors from the RCMP, Fish and Wildlife, Volunteer Fire Department, and the Sheriff's Department. Yet, it's all part of the plan.
Keep your rod tips up in the air. And I think it's important for a whole pile of reasons. You know, I can recall, growing up myself as a kid, We never got to see the game warden. You rarely got to see an RCMP officer. In some cases, it was almost, myth and legend. So, here's a great opportunity for us to get together with the kids, give something back to the community. Let them stand beside us and see that, yeah, we do wear a uniform, but we're just regular folks that do a job. And it lets us really interact with our future stakeholders.
For RCMP officer Roberta McHale, this is an opportunity for kids to interact with law enforcement on a different level.
Kids get to see us as, involved and interested in things as well. They know that I'm not necessarily a fisherman. They know that I'm out here for them. And there's members here that are really good at fishing and interested in it and do it, and they're sharing it. We all want to have interaction with kids that's positive, and this is a great way to do that. But also it's a great way to get out into our own community and see our kids doing things that are of interest to them.
Good job! 49.5.
Put it down?
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay.
Now put your other one underneath like this.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, now hold him as far away from you as you can. He looks bigger. That's right.
Now there is also some real learning taking place here. Some of the students are getting an opportunity to really understand the biology of fish.
They also eat mice, ducklings, frogs, anything that falls in the water. Children's toes.
It's this real-life introduction to science that teachers like Keith Denoncourt see as of value to outings like this.
If you can connect the students to the outdoors, they will govern themselves accordingly. Some of these kids, they never get a chance to be in the outdoors, and when you can put a fish on their line, it teaches them all about nature, and when they take a look around, it teaches them about teamwork, sportsmanship. We're getting a lot of live releases. It's not always about consumption, it's how you behave in the outdoors. And when you get this type of support that we've got, we can involve all these students in a very safe, controlled environment.
Hey boys, you want to gather around and watch this?
And this is how it's done. 52! Yeah!
Providing additional support to the day was the Alberta Conservation Association. It's their hope the Kids Can Catch event will develop right across the province.
It's been a great success here, as you can see today. Wonderful weather, and kids are catching fish, way more than me. We want to continue it here in Slave Lake as an ongoing event, but then also to take it across the province.
Of course, it takes a number of groups working together to ensure these kids have an opportunity to spend a day enjoying this pastime.
The event today would not happen without partnerships. That's what it's all about. I do have to give my hat off to Jeremy Lindsay at Fish and Wildlife here in Slave Lake. This was originally his idea. Cabela's stepped up in a big way with all sorts of fishing gear, rods and tackle boxes and whatnot. ACA kicked in some stuff for the kids as well, like Kids Cops and Fishing out of Ontario actually was very generous in sending some stuff out to give to the kids, and Trout Unlimited also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's hoping these students are leaving today with their own special memories of a first-time fishing experience.
So Alma, growing up in Europe, did you have a program like that?
No, I didn't, but I wish I had. I'd be better at fishing.
Yeah, I've seen you fish. Hey folks, if you'd like to catch previous stories featured on Let's Go Outdoors, then track down our website at letsgooutdoors.ca.
And remember, the outdoors is here for all of us to enjoy. If you see someone taking away from that enjoyment, call the Reporter Poacher line. Until next time, I'm Elma Mehmetbegovic.
And I'm Michael Short. Let's go outdoors.
I know where I want to be, outside wild and free. Let's go outdoors, let's go outdoors, you and me. Let's go outdoors where the waters run clear and cold. Mother Nature's world is better than gold. So much to see, so much to do. Let's go outdoors, me and you. Let's go outdoors.